good musicians.
Hey, they have full health insurance,
Full
flexible
health insurance,
hours.
right.
We do chain them to the chairs, but those are on the fly.
Exactly. So then you have the ratings, which I imagine function almost as a trade secret. You wouldn't want that leaking out because then maybe genius would get smart. And then you have the matching engine that on the basis of those ratings and the thumbs up, thumbs down,
Yeah.
produces the playlist. You could see producing open APIs to some combination of that stuff. For example, I might think I've got a really good formula that if I knew the ontology, even if I don't know the individual ratings, I could say when X obtains do Y, this kind of song should be linked with that kind of song. And wouldn't it be interesting to have a Pandora-powered open source API so others could try their hand at doing the alchemy that leads to the playlists?
The short answer to that is yes. And we do have an API now. It's available only to business partners, and it's a lot more shallow than what you described.
That's just a way of skinning Pandora.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's hardware companies can build it into their own devices, but it's essentially, it's not letting you deep into the guts of the genome. But I can certainly imagine that becoming a much richer and more open API than it is right now, because you have to be a company with serious distribution plans to get access to it right now. One of the challenges for us is we have a lot of legal and sort of liabilities around how Pandora is distributed. Things like, the sequencing of songs, what you're allowed to do, not allowed to do. Plus, it costs a lot of money to stream that music, and we got to be able to monetize it. And so, if we have thousands of people delivering free versions of Pandora that can't support advertising or periodically violate the DMCA license, it's our door that's going to get the knock. And we will. I think eventually we'll hope we can figure out a way to allow that sort of great developer community to go in and harvest this, but it's not going to happen right away. There's some, exigencies for a young company like ours we just have to be careful about at this stage. But I'd love to make it available for educational purposes, I said exigencies because you said ontology. Yeah.
How did you initially get the word out about the service?
The word out?
As a startup, yeah.
How do we get the word out? I would say blogs were we've never advertised it, and there were two bloggers, Robert Scoble and Michael Arrington, who are two very, very prominent tech bloggers that wrote very glowing reviews of Pandora. And they each probably had at the time 300,000 or 400,000 people that subscribed to their blogs. Like, that's all you need. I mean, if the extraordinary thing about products these days is if you build something that people really want and that works well, there's a demand for it. Like, it will out. People will try it. People will tell each other about it. The average Pandora listener tells 8 people about the service, and you've got so many cool ways to do it. Blogs, emails, Twitter, Facebook, MySpace, like all these things. And I've been traveling around the country. This is one way of telling people about it. You already know about it, but I've given about probably 250 town hall meetings in the last 3 years, in everything from Biloxi to Boston, for local Pandora listeners. And what you meet there are, people who are really evangelists about the service, and they have incredibly powerful tools to do that with. So, it just flows, and it's incredibly fun to watch that. I mean, remember that ad for IBM where that company launches their website and they're watching the ticker, and like yeah, and then it's an hour. Maybe it was for FedEx or something. Like, we need the hardware. It was like we had that experience. It just blew up. We were FedExing hardware and trying to keep up. Almost went down a few times, and it's all just completely viral. You don't spend a penny. So yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah.
This is a very practical question. So I teach first-year law students, and they come to me and they say, I'm really interested in music. I want to be involved in the music industry, but not at a record label. I want to do something in law and music. Who are the lawyers who serve your needs best? Who do you work with who you find really gets it versus who doesn't get it? And what advice would you have to young lawyers or wannabe lawyers who would want to work with or on behalf of a company like yours?
So you're asking what type of lawyer, not names of individual lawyers, right?
Yes, not names.
So I'd say we have two kinds of lawyers that we work with. One are sort of straight up contract lawyers, because we do a fair number of contracts with business partners, and the the best lawyers in that domain are people who have very strong conceptual skills. Because you're dealing with newfangled, weird arrangements, and you have to have the ability to kind of synthesize the kind of your needs, your capabilities with the needs and capabilities and sort of agendas of two parties. And that's just about being kind of, it's about conceptual knowledge. And I don't think it necessarily means tons of experience. I think we've got some young lawyers working on stuff for us. So I think contract folks. And then the other one I would say would be lawyers who have had a foot in the music industry in some capacity. So understand the psychology and the philosophy, I guess, of artists, record labels, managers, the ecosystem of music, but also have a strong appetite for technology. And I think that, you know, marrying art and technology to me is the nexus of legal work for the next 20 years. I mean, it's a rare combination, but that is where artists will live or die. And I think if you weren't a lawyer and you wanted to work in the music business, I think the best job you can get is grab a handful of bands and manage them, because you can do that now from a desktop computer, and you can do a lot of damage with just a laptop. If you know how to navigate online communities and build word of mouth and so on. And bands are going to learn that too. And bands are going to realize they need that, you know, that I call the digital fifth Beatle. You know, like you need someone whose job in your band is not to play an instrument, but it's to amplify what you're doing through the web. And incredible possibilities. I mean, when I was in the band, we sent out like little cardboard flyers, and you know, we were putting posters on telephone poles. That's not scalable. So what it is now, you know, it's kind of stuff.
Time for one more question.